Millie Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL. Coming up a half hour from now, Trevor Maddich will join us. We'll get into the Redskins' victory over the Cardinals yesterday, 22-21. Some excitement at FedEx Field. Newt Gingrich on the program this morning. We'll talk to Newt, former Speaker of the House, guy who wants to be the next President of the United States. About 1 hour from now, Newt Gingrich will join us. Joe Digenova, our legal expert, is here on the phone. In a week from now, you'll be able to hear Joe Digenova on 105.9 FM because we're switching over to 105.9 FM later today at high noon. You'll be able to hear WMAL on FM. Wow. I thought I'd never see the day. Wow. But it is here today at noon. We have a Rush Limbaugh, a Rush block coming your way on 105.9 later today. That's pretty good. That's exciting, isn't it, Joe?
Brian, I remember being in the studio and hearing you say, we've got to be on FM. We've got to have a better signal.
A visionary.
And they finally listened to me.
That's right.
He's been the impetus for the whole thing.
Yeah,
I
don't quite think so. So we're going to talk to Trevor a little bit later, but I want to ask you about Dan Snyder because I noticed last week he dropped his lawsuit against the City Paper. Why do you think he dropped his lawsuit after making such a big deal about it?
Very interesting. As a PR man, he picked the 9/11 Memorial Weekend to drop it. September the 10th, the papers were filed. He did it because he was about to lose a very important motion in the lawsuit. As you recall, when he sued the City Paper, we all were discussing this. He filed it in New York, and I said it would be dismissed in New York, which it was, so he refiled it in D.C. He then got slapped with what they call an anti-slap motion by the City Paper. A slap is a motion you file when you claim that your free speech is being prohibited, that this is a vindictive lawsuit filed by a company or a person who's very wealthy to prevent you from speaking. If you win such a motion, you not only get damages, but you get attorney's fees. And all of your attorney's fees have to be paid. And Snyder finally realized, after he looked at the polling data on him, that he was never going to get a jury that was going to be sympathetic to his complaints about the City Paper. And so he got out of Dodge on 9/11.
All right, so he looked at, but look at the situation. He sues a newspaper because he says they wrote untruths about him, although that is highly debatable. So it's a bad PR move from the get-go, but he said he was doing it on principle. And then at the end of the day, he drops the lawsuit, so he gets nothing out of it. He doesn't have his day in court where an actual jury says, you know what, you're right. The paper lied about you. Yes. And so now he gets the worst of both sides.
Well,
people don't like him, and he doesn't win the lawsuit.
This was bad from day one. You will recall our original discussions that we said this was never going to work, that it was bad PR from day one, that he looked like a bully. Now, of course, the reason he did this was because his wife, who was a very lovely person apparently, got furious about some of the things that were being said about her as well. And, I mean, you can just see the discussion with his lawyers. But this is where a good lawyer says to a client, don't do this. You should not file this lawsuit. That apparently did not happen, or if it did, somebody caved. But the bottom line is this. This is the worst of all worlds for him. But I'm sure when he heard about that polling data and saw how low his approval rating was and how high his disapproval rating was, he realized as a longtime advertising executive that this had been a disaster and it was going to cost him more money in the form of paying attorney's fees if he hadn't moved to dismiss his own case.
Joe, I wanted to ask you, there's this UN vote on Palestinian statehood,
yes.
And I just get confused about, in the international community, we always talk about the politics of these things, but what are the legal underpinnings of a vote like that? What does it mean?
This is a very big deal legally.
Yeah.
If the Security Council of the UN votes to make them a state,
right,
or if the General Assembly of the United Nations votes to make them a state, they become an official member of the United Nations, and they get the right as a state, even though they have no specific piece of territory that's so denominated, to go to the International Court of Justice and sue Israel, to go to the International Criminal Court and seek indictments of Israeli military and diplomatic officials. They get the right to seek loans from international monetary institutions and they get the right to have an officially recognized military organization which can then legally buy weapons in the open world market. This is a phenomenal event, and it's really fascinating because it coincides with the visit of the Prime Minister of Turkey on Tuesday to the White House to visit the President in the midst of a huge conflict between Turkey and Israel and Turkey and the United States. This is really a very, very dramatic time for all of this to be happening.
Joe, there are a series of things going on right now with the Obama administration. There's this fast and furious investigation, the Cylinder probe, which is extremely interesting and tends to point in the direction of the office of Rahm Emanuel and maybe even the Vice President of the United States. There are questions about whether or not undue influence was applied in the form of pressure against a four-star U.S. general to change his testimony before Congress, perhaps on behalf of a campaign contributor. Are these stories that have legal legs? Are these stories that are going to continue to become problems for the Obama administration?
Yeah, I think all of these are serious matters which have legal legs, and the reason they have legal legs is because of the 2010 elections. The House of Representatives is in the hands of Republicans, and that means they have subpoena power. The power to probe is the power to create information and news. Solyndra stinks to high heaven. There is clearly undue influence. Clearly, this was not a meritorious award. Whether or not there is criminality remains to be seen, although with the execution of a search warrant by the FBI at Solyndra headquarters and at the executive homes, there is at least probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed, because that's what you need to get a search warrant.
That's right.
So I think in that, all of these other cases as well really have the testimony of the general isn't going to be a criminal act, but it does show the degree to which a campaign contributor can have phenomenal influence. And I remember what Brian said the other day. This idea of how you use the spectrum, the broadband spectrum for GPS,
right,
is a very complex commercial and governmental issue. But the one thing that is not complex is that when a general says he disagrees and they try to change his testimony, that's a big deal, because these are the folks, the Democrats, the Obama people, who tell us all about how they believe in good government and how good government is the hallmark of a good liberal or a good leftist. This is not good government. This is bad government. This is Nixonian government. This is trying to control a four-star general's substantive, meritorious testimony about whether or not the spectrum should be abused and perhaps cripple GPS military systems. This is not some winky-dink issue. This is a big, as Joe Biden would say,
it's a BFD. Yeah.
All right, before I let you go, we always talk about what's going on in Europe, and we can see our future through the eyes of Europe. The French and the banning of the burqa. Now the Netherlands, the Dutch proposing to get rid of the face-covering veils. That's pretty big news over there.
Yeah, this also coincides with the fight that the United States and Israel are having with Turkey. All of these things are happening simultaneously. There is a revulsion against the refusal of Muslims to assimilate in Europe. And what happened in the Netherlands the other day was that the Dutch Prime Minister, who is being pushed increasingly into conservative positions by Geert Wilders, the Freedom Party guy in the Netherlands, announced that they are going to ban full-face burqas by legislation. And at the same time, they are proposing changes in their immigration laws to force anybody who wants to come to the Netherlands to prove that they have been working, that they've had an income for at least 3 years, that they have not received public assistance, and that they will learn Dutch. So, this is the beginning. It's been happening for some time, but there is a wave sweeping across Europe against the caliphate, the coming caliphate, right, quote unquote. So this is a big deal in the Netherlands because they're generally considered pretty liberal folk.
All right, Joe. Good to talk to you. When we do it next week, we'll be on 105.9 FM. So
congratulations on